everyone, this is Powell Ponder on Weather. In this update, we got an all-hazard events coming with tornadoes, flooding rains, and blizzard-like conditions at times with roller coaster temperatures. Welcome back, everyone. This is your Wednesday update. Go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe if you hadn't subscribed already. I do daily updates on this channel to keep you ahead of the storm. And it's also important to share this video with your friends and family that may be impacted from this severe risk that's coming over the next couple of days. So let's take a look at the overall setup this morning for your February 16th time frame, and we can see this powerful upper level low out here into portions of Phoenix. That's bringing some rain. It actually brought some welcome rain into portions of San Diego, down here in Southern California. So you know it's a pretty dynamic system if it's raining in the deserts and it's ringing out some snow into portions of Billings. That'll extend into portions of Colorado, getting into Denver this afternoon. But out ahead of it, you can definitely see where the Arctic blast is, right along getting into portions of Kansas City where they're really into the 60s this morning. So here's your warm sector. So this is the area of instability it's going to be able to tap into as we get into the overnight hours as this thing really starts to crank up. And it's definitely going to be a bumpy 36-hour window once we get into that midnight time frame tonight. So let's take a look at the overall hazards, because there's a lot. So as the system comes down, we've got winter weather advisories into portions of Montana, going into Wyoming. Some of those transfer into winter storm warnings in portions of Colorado. We got a lot of red flag advisories where this area has been bone dry, and a lot of high winds are going to be impacting portions of the Texas Panhandle. But there's your winter weather advisories into portions of Oklahoma, into Kansas, getting into central Missouri, getting into central Illinois, as well as northern parts of Indiana and southern parts of Michigan. But they're going to be seeing some very heavy snow, 1 to 4 inches, if not 4 to 8. And some of these areas of these convective swaths could pick up, 8 to 10 inches. Is definitely not out of the question. But we also have flood advisories down to the south. So there's going to be a lot of heavier rain with this particular system as well into portions of southern Missouri, central Illinois, getting into central Indiana, northern Ohio, and portions of New York, as well as Vermont here. And then winds, very high winds as well, 40, 50 miles an hour is definitely not out of the question with these gusts as this system comes across. And this is going to be very quick movers. So as we move forward into that Wednesday night time frame, this is midnight. So we're going to be having snow breaking out into Colorado. That'll get into portions of Denver where they're expecting about 4 to 6 inches from this particular system. The snow is kind of winding down into portions of New Mexico, but we got supercell thunderstorms forming off the dry line in far west Texas and getting closer to the Texas Panhandle and western Oklahoma, where supercell thunderstorms start to fire. They start to turn severe off the dry line where that triple point is, where that low pressure system. And out ahead of it, we've got that heavier rain extending into central, getting into portions of Missouri here, northern Illinois. So you start off as very heavy rain, and then you transfer to some ice and then snow on the backside. But we've got heavier rain by midnight tonight in portions of central Michigan, and that extends into portions of southern Canada here. But as we move forward, there's that risk from the Storm Prediction Center highlighting that slight risk for severe weather in and around the Dallas-Fort Worth area, Oklahoma City, getting into Tulsa, as well as portions of Fort Worth, but mainly getting into Wichita Falls and especially southern parts along the Red River and southern parts of Oklahoma. But you could still see some severe weather extending into Little Rock, Arkansas, going all the way up to Springfield, Missouri, back into Abilene, where that form off the dry line, and then extending out in East Texas as far east as into the Tyler, Texas area. So as we move forward, there's the highlighted feature where we could have the greatest probability of seeing a tornado right along that sector where that upper level low is going to be traversing essentially northwest of the Metroplex. So I feel most of the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex is going to be more or less impacted from mainly a damaging wind threat. But you can't roll out just an isolated brief spin up with this particular system. But the greatest lift or the greatest probability of seeing a tornadic supercell is in and around here in West Texas, towards Abilene, towards Wichita Falls, towards Lawton, Oklahoma, getting into portions along the Red River here towards into the border of the Texas and Oklahoma border. So let's take a look at the overall significant parameter tornado index, and yeah, that's highlighting those areas like I mentioned right off the dry line where it starts to really gets cranking by midnight tonight. Portions of Abilene, especially as you go into Wichita Falls and Lawton, Oklahoma, and southern portions of Oklahoma. This is your greatest probability of seeing a tornadic supercell, as this upper level low will traverse northwestward towards central Oklahoma as we get into that 6 o'clock in the morning time frame. And here's the latest radar depiction as we get into that 6 o'clock in the morning time frame on Thursday, February 17th. There's a very just narrow band extending into portions of the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex where, again, the low traverses northwest, and underneath that you just have a dying band that goes across Dallas, getting into portions of central Texas where it's just going to be a quick hit. So that's why I mainly think it's going to be just more or less a window threat for much of Dallas. But you got that heavier snow breaking out into the Texas Panhandle, western parts of Oklahoma, then western parts and central portions of Kansas. And then that all transfers to ice as well into portions of Missouri, and then that heavier rain with the flooding rains on the south side extending now. Some of these could be severe as well into portions of East Texas, going into Arkansas, going into central Missouri, and portions of Illinois, as well as Indiana. And then as this moves eastward, yeah, the Storm Prediction Center has really expanded the slight risk for severe weather, and some of these areas are probably going to be upgraded to enhanced as we get closer in time. But right now, it's looking likely that the greatest probability on Thursday to see that severe weather is far east Texas, northern parts of Louisiana, pretty much the entire state of Mississippi, western parts of Alabama, western parts of Tennessee, western parts of Kentucky, and southern Illinois as this dynamic system moves across. But you can still see that severe weather as these storms are going to be racing 50 to 60 miles an hour. So these are going to be a very fast movers as these race across during the daytime hours in the afternoon time frame. So by the time we get towards the later evening hours, they're in portions of Georgia, into the Carolinas, into portions of Virginia, even West Virginia by then as that severe threat moves east. But I do feel we have another higher potential to seeing tornadic supercells as we get into Mississippi, into western parts of Alabama here, into western parts of Tennessee, and southern parts of Kentucky, where you see that greatest probability during the daytime hours. This is during peak heating now, but yeah, even extending into as far as south as going into Nashville, into Louisville, Kentucky, all the way south as going into portions of Montgomery, Alabama, are seeing the probability of a tornadic supercell. So yeah, here's the radar depiction as we get into that noon time frame, where again we have those tornadic supercells start to break out and getting towards the peak heat of the day into Louisiana, into Mississippi, into western parts of Tennessee, and then it's an all rain and flooding setup as you get into southern parts of Illinois, Indiana, especially Ohio, getting into portions of northern Pittsburgh, where it's going to be all rain, and Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And then you got all that heavier rain into New York, with that snow just breaking out on the north side. So there's going to be a sharp gradient. The northwest of this upper level low that's traversing northwestward, there's where we're going to have some even blizzard like conditions at times, getting into portions of northern Missouri, right along Chicago, Illinois, and far northern areas of Indiana, as well as Michigan. And that's that noon time frame on Thursday. And there's your tornadic setup, where the Storm Prediction Center has highlighted the greatest probability, where you have another area of higher numbers seeing potential tornadic supercells kind of break out within the warm sector and the peak heating of the day. This is about 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Thursday. But as these systems continue to move across, there's what the radar could look like as well, highlighting those tornadic supercells further down to the southeast, then highlighting that heavier rain as this continues to push across and lift northwestward in time. And as it does, again, you're going to have a sharp gradient of very heavy snow onto the north sector. Should be really heavy portions of Chicago by then with that heavier snow, getting into northern Indiana and southern parts of Michigan as we get into the afternoon hours on Thursday. But again, as it moves at 50, 60 miles an hour, by 9 o'clock this evening, it starts to flatten out. So that's why it shifted to more of a marginal risk for severe weather as you get this, squall line start to form. And then with that heavier supercells, with that very heavy rain, the severe threat starts to wind down as we get into that Thursday night time frame. And a lot of this could just be some heavier rainfall into portions of Pennsylvania, into New York, where they've got those flash flood watches, into Vermont here, as this dynamic system will continue to race across. And there's 4 o'clock in the morning as we wake up on Friday. There's the heavier rain now along the I-95 corridor, again moving 50 to 60 miles an hour. I don't think none of this is severe by then, but you are going to be experiencing that moderate to heavy rain. And by the time you wait, by the time the sun rises, I mean, it's gone. It's quickly moving. So it's just going to be a bumpy 36-hour window with a lot of high winds as well. And so here's the wind swath really over the next 48, 60 hours. And you can definitely see where these green shaded areas, that's your 40+ mile per hour wind gust. So it's a big area. And then the higher wind gust probability is up here in the Ohio Valley, getting into Pennsylvania here with those heavier rains, but you're also going to be experiencing some of those higher wind gusts. And obviously down here, any cell that turns severe is a 58 mile per hour or greater winds within those supercells whenever they would turn severe. And then as we get into that snowfall look, yeah, there's that heavier swath. I feel you're going to have kind of a dusting to a trace to possibly up to an inch in the Texas Panhandle. Back here towards Colorado, yeah, 4 to 6 inches in towards the Denver Metroplex. But there's going to be a good swath of heavier snow break out in central Kansas, central Missouri, central to northern Illinois, northern parts of Indiana, northern parts of far northern parts of Ohio, extending up here into Canada with that heavier snow. And just to the south of there's your ice. So again, there's going to be another sharp gradient of a glaze to 1/10 of an inch of ice just to the south side of where that heavier snow is gonna fly. And here's the latest update from that winter storm, where the heavier swaths of snow could be into portions of Wichita, going into Kansas City, into Chicago, towards Lansing, easily 4 inches plus. Some of these areas 8 inches, and some of these areas where you have that really convective banding where it could actually snow up to 2 to 3 inches an hour at times as this continues to race across, maybe up to a foot in some of these locations within the orange sector. But there's the freezing rain just to the south of there, where you're going to be looking at a glaze to 1/10 of an inch of ice as this dynamic system continues to move across. And then you got very cold air that follows on the backside, because we are going to have an Arctic blast followed on the backside. So as you wake up on that Friday morning, all of this area really clears out as this rapidly moves offshore. But you got widespread 20-degree temperatures for a good chunk in all the areas in blue, and all the areas in purple, you're talking single digits, if not below zero temperatures as you wake up on Friday. But it doesn't last long, because as the winds turn around, and even by Sunday, we go back into more or less a zonal flow, and that's a very warm flow with Pacific air. So you're going to see a rapid drop in temperatures, and then a rapid surge right back up in temperatures as you get into a very nice weekend for a good chunk of the country, with all that Arctic air bottled well to the north back into Canada again as the jet stream really starts to flatten out. But that really doesn't take long, because there's Sunday, there's the swath, as you're seeing widespread 70s and 60s for a good chunk of the southern plains and the southeast. and much of the Ohio Valley back into the 50s, even 50s, extending all the way into South Dakota. So you can definitely see a rapid surge in temperatures with the Arctic air well to the north up in Canada. That's on Sunday, February 20th timeframe. There's your date at the top left-hand corner of the screen. But as you get into that Tuesday, again, we have another Arctic blast that comes in. So the warm-up's not long. And then again, we have a roller coaster temperatures of swings of widespread below zeros up in Canada with that 20 degrees below zero temperatures extending back into the Dakotas where you were in the 50s for highs. So, and then you're back into the 20s as extended into Kansas, get into Oklahoma as that cold air continues to plunge southward as we get into that middle of week time frame. But we also have another trough that's going to be setting up off the west coast here. So that's going to bring more instability, more colder air out here in our western states and bring more beneficial rains and some snow into our western regions, even California, even parts of the deserts again, as again, we warm up on the south and east side and have those clash in temperatures. Now, the difference next week with this cold blast, we're not seeing a rapid surge after Wednesday, the 23rd, as this cold front comes through. So as it comes through, it's going to linger and it's going to remain cold and remain below freezing, below normal temperatures for a good chunk of the country besides portions of the southeast going into that 23rd through that 28th and ending February time frame. And even if we extend it going into that 26th to that March 3rd time frame, we're still seeing much of the country below below average temperatures as that cold air tends to start to hang around. But this is not going to be until next week, so we're not seeing that rapid rebound of what we're going to be seeing this week after that Arctic blast. So after next Wednesday, the cold air looks to hang around for several days after that, extending in through the end of February, going into the first part of March. So hey, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely leave your comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel to catch the latest update where I protect you for and after the storm.